Hello everybody, this is the Emancipator. I have put some things together that I want every Secured Party Creditor should know and must know about money. So let's get started. What is money? The answer, absolutely nothing at all. You're probably saying, what do you mean? Money is nothing at all. I just paid my car with money. My groceries were bought with money. I have money in my bank account. I spend money every single day. Well, those may be your very words, but the truth is, money as you understand it to be is worthless in its currency form, paper. In fact, the term money is very misleading. For example, if you were to take out a $1 bill and set it on fire, where would the value of the 100 cents go? Give up? Okay. The value assigned to the piece of paper you call a dollar is not in the dollar. The dollar itself has no value outside of being fuel for fire. It's not a true note or lawful form of currency as outlined in the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. It is not backed by gold or silver as many people think. In fact, it is only a medium between artificial value and true value. Getting confused? Well, let me explain. To start off, in the United States, there is no money created by our so-called government. Your so-called US dollars are created by private banks who operate a monetary reserve. The title Federal Reserve does not mean an institution owned, managed, or controlled by the federal government. The Federal Reserve is a central banking corporation founded in 1913 to regulate the financial affairs of the United States. Your government issued the paper dollars for the Federal Reserve. These dollars are called on their face Federal Reserve notes. Before 1933 or as far back as 1912 and further, the money that circulated in this country was backed by gold and silver. Gold was a true form of money with a real value. It still is. Think about it. The global economic news on TV and in the newspapers, you hear of an economical crisis. This means that the paper money is suffering. But when you look at the price of gold, it is stable and keeps on rising in value. So why is that? Listen closely. In order to see the big picture, you have to understand a bit of history. Early in this nation's history, the agency representatives of the various United Colonies of North America, via the Declaration of Independence, declared their separate and equal station, to which the law of nature and nature's creator entitled them, common law. Formerly expatriating themselves from England or from Great Britain, and repatriating themselves in an orderly fashion into a social compact style as the United States of America. Under the Legislative Assembly known as the United States in Congress assembled. The term expatriate means to withdraw oneself from residence, citizenship, in or elegance to one's nation country, uh, uh, to, to live one's home country, to live elsewhere. Repatriate would then mean to establish new residency or citizenship. Though this was true for the early Americans, most people do not realize that the primary reason for the expatriation and ensuring Revolutionary War of 1773 to 1775 was not taxation without representation, but the forced payment of taxes to the king in gold, not paper money. The Crown of England would not accept the new American paper fiat money. Why? Because it was worthless. It had been inflated and the crown could not circulate it in the homeland of England nor anywhere else in the world. The people of the colonies of North America were flourishing by their own fiat money system based only on their production, not a gold-based system that could be manipulated by the king. The king could not control the fiat money system and therefore passed a law requiring the subjects of the crown to pay taxes in real money, gold only. The king had most of the gold. The people of the colonies had little. As a result, unemployment ensured. The embittered soul cried for redress. This fell on deaf ears, which led to the national common law powers of the people, from which all political power is inherited. They declared the immediate separation, expatriation, and repatriation at once, causing the crown to declare war on the exercise of the principle of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as the people of the colonies of North America has so amply declared and laid before a candid world, for the causes which impelled them in the separation. The new expatriators of the United States in Congress assembled did win the Revolutionary War with England, but this was by design, as you'll see later. There was a malfunction, however, in the plans for the U.S. of America. The money powers were waiting at the gates from the very beginning. Although the British Empire, as a recognized government in the world, lost the American Revolution, the power, international banks, better known as banksters, gangsters in control of banking operations, structure behind it, did not lose the war. The most visible of the power structure identity was the East India Company, owned by the banksters in the Crown in London, England. This was an entirely private enterprise whose flags were adopted by the Queen Elizabeth in 1600. This flag had 13 red and white horizontal stripes and a blue rectangle in its upper left-hand corner. The British government became hostile by oppressive legislation and eventually declared war from 1774 to 1782. The East Indian Company owners constituted a portion of the invisible sovereign power structure, the banks, behind the British government. They kept control of its holding in the new nation and move right into the new economy created by the founding fathers through the social compact known as the United States of America. Together, and in close association with the colonies representatives of the United States in Congress assembled, and their most powerful landowners still maintain control of the New World from the British Crown. The London banksters, headed by the German Jewish Rothschild family, headed the international banking industry. This in turn gave them and their business associates a monopoly on the trade operation within the outside of the newly formed American nation. The British Empire was no longer the sole base of operations for the banksters, whose plot was to control the global economy. The United States Constitution created a new social contract structure of government that was established on a much higher plane than the parliamentary system of the Confederation of the United States of America. There was a social compact known as Constitutional Republic, wherein a certain amount of power was delegated to the state corporation, enfranchised by the new order of the social impact. A certain amount was delegated to the agency federal government, with the residual power reserved to the signatory parties, respectively, the real party in interest, we the people of the United States, who either signed the Declaration of Independence, the Article of Confederation, and the new Constitution of the United States for the United States of America, or were related as a member, posterity of such people, having been the signatory thereto. To no other people does such social compact guarantee any standings of rights or otherwise under the new social compact. The representatives, all those who signed the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, along with their families and direct descendants of we the people of the United States, by way of their agency representatives of the United States in Congress assembled, had certain enumerated powers delegated by the social compact known as the Constitution of the United States. So far as the several states party to the United States Constitution are directly concerned, the representatives of the United States in Congress assembled may not exercise any power not so delegated by the social compact known as the United States Constitution. All power delegated to the representatives of the United States in Congress assembled by the social contract is reserved to the several states within their respective territorial borders, or to the signatory people thereto, or their posterity thereof. United States Constitution, Article 9 and 10. The adoption of the Constitution came about due to a treaty of peace with the Crown of England in 1782 to 1783. The banksters did not gain the total control they sought out, but they were close. One of the first acts the so-called president, Mr. George Washington, did was to declare a national financial emergency. The Revolutionary War had crippled the United States economy. William Morris, with the help of the United States Treasury Secretary Alexander Hamilton, heavily promoted the first prominent international national bank, Bank of England, ran by the money mafia, headed by the Rothschilds and their prominent international banksters. Congress chartered the first national bank for a term of 20 years with the same European banksters that were holding the debt before the war. These very individuals who started and financed the revolution were now in control of the central bank on U.S. soil. The banksters loaned worthless, unbacked, non-secured printed money to each other to charter the first bank. So after thousands of lives were lost fighting a war to get control of the wealth of the people and their medium of money, why did Congress contract with the same enemies that started the Revolutionary War in the first place? It's very simple. Since the Crown of England and members of the money mafia headed by the Rothschilds were the secured party creditors that demanded a private bank to hold the securities, the assets of the United States as the pledged assets to the Crown of England in order to secure the debt to which the United States had originally defaulted. The holders of the securities were the private bankers operating the newly chartered bank. So under public international law, the creditor nation forced the U.S. to establish a private bank to hold the securities as collateral for the loan. This was done behind the scenes. The historians failed to document this fact. You're blinded by all the patriotic fanfare. The Boston Tea Party was all prearranged. The money mafia orchestrated the whole thing in 1785. Nathan Rothschild, the youngest of the Rothschild dynasty, expanded his wealth to 20,000 pounds within a 15-year period. That's an increase of 2,500%. In 1787, Amschel, the mayor, Rothschild, made the famous statement, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." In 1798, the five Rothschild brothers expanded by opening banks in each of the major cities of Europe. Amschel in Germany, Solomon in Vienna, Jacob in Paris, Nathan in London, and Carl in Naples. Up to this date, they control all the international currencies. The original banking charter passed by President Washington in Congress in 1781 came to an end in 1811 Once it ended the debt the United States owed the international banks, headed by the Crown of England via Lord Rothschild, was unsecured. The new president tried to avoid establishing a new charter. As a result, the British Army, under order of the banks and the Crown, attacked the United States. It is called the War of 1812. The United States was in dishonor. It owed the banksters, and they demanded payment in full or security on their money debt. The result was a bloody war that was negotiated behind the scenes until the new central bank was chartered for another 20 years to expire in or around 1836. Once again, thousands of lives were lost behind a money scheme, and historians missed it. Here's a clue. There's a famous painting in Washington, D.C. depicting the British boarding a ship after they supposedly surrendered. The painting shows the British carrying their rifles as they mount the gang plank. So here's the question. Why would a surrounding army be allowed to keep their weapons? It's clearly simple. They were not actually surrendering. They were being called back due to a new arrangement between the banks and American leaders. Before continuing on with some more history, it's necessary to point out that money is a tool used by the money mafia to control people and the lands they reside in without direct use of guns or physical force. If force is needed, then either the local police will be called, or if major force is required, then the military will be called in. The first paper notes had a gold standard to back them. Even though at times inflation, overprinting, led to worthless fiat money entering the circulation. Through money power and its influence, foreign banks could pick up and choose who they wanted in power, even a president or a king. The chief banker organization is the Lord of Rothschild. Their kingdom supersedes that of the Crown of England. Even the Queen loses her royal superiority when she steps foot on Manor Rothschild. The Manor estate site on 677 acres, and it's a city-state unto itself. On the estate, even the Queen of England surrenders her power to the mayor of the Manor, its Rothschild heir to the banking throne. Here, all monetary decisions are made for the global economy. The price of gold and other securities and commodities are established in the world market. Now let's get back to the history. In 1832, President Andrew Jackson fought the money mafia's attempt to establish a new charter, as the current charter was to end in 1836. Two attempts to assassinate him were made. Jackson knew firsthand about the money mafia and was successful in blocking the charter. His reasoning was this: the Constitution does not delegate authority for Congress to establish a national bank. Due to the bold stance, there was not a central national bank established in America for more than 75 years. It wasn't until 1913, after the passing of the Federal Reserve Act, the banks were extremely upset, but the American military was strong due to the nation's growth in trade wealth. Still, the banksters systematically fight their way back into the scheme of things during the Civil War. In 1860 to 61, the Southern states, who were true representatives of the original social compact and signatories, thereof, walked out of Congress. This created a sin die. Abraham Lincoln was elected president. The South walked out and declared their states' rights pursuant to the social compact known as the United States Constitution. Slavery was only a window dressing for the Civil War. The war had nothing to do with slavery, as most of you have been led to believe. It has to do with states, the rights of the present living posterity of the original signatories to the social compact, to alter or abolish the form of government which their forefathers established for themselves and their posterity, rights and the national debt to the creditors, physical agents, to banks. The South wanted to be redeemed from the crown of England. The North wanted to remain under their domain and their debt. When the posterities of the member states of the South ordered their representatives to walk out of Congress, this ended the public side of the people created Constitution as far as the republic form of government was concerned. What remained of the government was the private side, the democracy. The remaining mob of illegitimate members of the congressional body of agents who had breached the organic social compact known as the United States Constitution, which the beneficiaries of the original signatories of the trust so established by their posterity forced upon them under the rules of the bankers, who were the physical agents of the crown. During and after the Civil War, the original 13th Amendment was replaced and a new 13th Amendment was issued first by executive order and then enacted under martial law on December 18, 1865. The 14th Amendment was enacted similarly on July 1868. The 15th Amendment on March the 30th, 1870. President Lincoln, by executive order, proclaimed the first Trading with the Enemy Act. This means anyone not a part of the social compact was considered an enemy. All of the Southern states and its residents, free or slave, who refused or neglected to join the Union were now enemies. So anyone carrying on commerce with them was declared in violation of federal law. Lincoln defined the banksters who fully supported the Southern plantation owners and those wishing to honor the original social compact established by the Founding Fathers. President Lincoln stated the government should create, issue, and circulate all currency and credit needed to satisfy the spending power of the government and the buying power of the consumer. He further stated, the privilege of creating and issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of government, but it is the government's greatest opportunity. Afterwards, he was assassinated because he defied the banks by printing interest-free money to pay for the war effort. The banks were not and are not to be defied or disobeyed. The North won the war due to the help of the Russian Tsars, who stationed ships in the United States seaports to prevent British assistance for the South. Lincoln's death left the nation in a state of martial law. Even to this day, no one has repealed his executive order. At any given period of time, the only people in the United States who are under the jurisdiction of the private bureaucrat government of the assumed 10 miles square of Washington, D.C., the only true federal jurisdiction in the incorporated 10-mile square known as the District of Columbia, where the government, employees, and those who created the social compact, and of course those residing as residents and non-resident aliens within the territories owned by the United States and non-former slaves. the former citizens of those living in the southern portion of the social construct known as the U.S. for the United States of America, now captured, became 14th Amendment citizens by martial law. Their only express and sole privilege was to vote as granted by the 15th Amendment. The remainder of the Compact Party people of the posterity related thereto could still invoke the power over government, the original jurisdiction of the Republic side, meaning private, of the Constitution. Only in limited application from any curtail privilege and immediately affected pursuant thereto by way of the Act of July 27, 1868. Thus, the new form of democracy, mafia-ruled martial law, as the government was so styled, operated fully under the authority of private law dictated by the creditor, the sovereign, secured party members, according to the principle of international public order. In 1871, with Lincoln's death and no true support for distribution of an independent, interest-free money, bankruptcy loomed over Congress. The banks struck a deal with the new president in Congress, and the United States of America was incorporated under British Crown. If you do not believe this, just take a look at Title 28 USC Section 3002 15A, Chapter 176. The United States of America is a federal corporation. Its Constitution are the copyrighted by laws by which the artificial entity now entitled United States of America Incorporated will function. Because the United States is not an organic or real live government body, it is considered an artificial entity. If you look at the definition for corporation, you will find the words artificial person. The United States Incorporated is an artificial person, so it cannot do business under. It's copyrighted by law, which real flesh and blood private people without their consent. For this reason, at birth, you were made by name a person, which is an artificial entity created by the state, also a legal fiction you were born in. Yes, the state of whatever name United States state you live in is also an artificial entity incorporated under the jurisdiction of the United States Incorporated. Your status as a person by name causes you to be subject to the power of the legal fictions of public law and order. Your name is a straw man, a front for the real flesh blood private man. This process took place in public view. You missed it because the false history you given is the product and tool of the social machine, your new master. The U.S. was incorporated in 1871 and was now under the full power and control over foreign banks who had agents working in government and the business sector for the USA. People, it's time for you to wake up. It's time for you to know the truth. This is the Emancipator.